Thank you, Lynn. Yes.
Hi, my name is Ann McNerney, and I've been living in Atherton for 13 years. And I would like this board to postpone any decision on abandoning the old site as a library for the park site. My experience mirrors what the other two members of the public said, Mr. Jones and Albright, and the last speaker. And people are just waking up to the fact that a move to the park is in the works, and it's almost been presented in this report as a fait accompli, a done deal. And I think council members are discovering that emotions are running high on this subject, and that perhaps I think it's high enough for us to have a referendum. So this is the third person in public comment that says, I think this is of an important enough nature that we should have a referendum on whether to maintain the old site. And I think, and now I'm going to continue, I believe that this report is biased in favor of the park, but before I get into the details of the report, I just want to show you that the bias is immediately evident in the two plans, even though they say the final design will be after the site is chosen. And yet, how the site is going to be used are factors in whether you're making the present decision. So there's a little bit of, things that don't make sense. There were no alternatives such as building up like 2 or 3 stories where you can have stacks, maybe using some of the public works sheds if our public works are going to be farmed out in the over the street crossway. No talk, the design doesn't try to continue the Spanish eclectic design that we have. We can just drive down El Camino and see all sorts of sort of modernized versions that still show the historical reference. The library building itself is not designated historic building, but like the town hall, but it is in that style, and I think all efforts should be used to continue that style. And all the modernization and uses that our wonderful librarian talked about the library can happen at the existing site in a retrofitted building, which has more parking. There's also the issue of safety of children, which nobody has brought up except for you in terms of people driving fast. But the libraries do attract people who are homeless. They attract people who stay there all day. When the economy goes up, we may have, again, more of a reliance on electronic books and less of a reliance and less people using the library, although the aging population may be a factor in that. But it's a very short walk from this area to the library, or a short drive. Plus, there's more parking spaces over in the library side. So I really, maybe not numerically, but in terms of the usage of it, 10% less, according to this very biased report. So I think with the usage of electronic books, perhaps an improvement in the economy, but also because of the feelings, you should not make a decision and accept this report. And I would like to see the design in the old site opened up to competition, to other architectural firms that would incorporate the Spanish eclectic design and would build up and not take out heritage trees. We love our trees, so just having a design that takes out 3 heritage trees to me is already a bias. So it's a very good report. I thank especially the non-paid volunteers of the library committee like Bernice for all the hard work, because I know it's a thankless job being on a lot of committees. But please do not make a decision, and please let's have a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Julie.
Yeah, hi, I'm Julie Quinlan. I guess we're saying how long we've been here. My family moved here in 1955. Sandy mowed my grandfather's lawn, didn't you?
My family moved in 1947.
You beat me, you got me. Anyhow, I tend to agree with the prior speakers. And as a lawyer, what I think about when I'm addressing a body is I think about what is your charge? Your charge is what is right for the park. That's it. And, you know, from the standpoint of library users, you can't argue. It's gorgeous, no doubt. But my issue is I don't think it's best for the park. And that's really what the focus of your duties are right now. This would be a big deal for the park. I mean, they're talking about potentially, but not, you know, 9,000 to 11,000 square feet. I think it would become the focal point. It would become, you know, people would come here mostly for the library. It would draw in that, which is, I mean, I'm an avid library user, so I think it's an awesome thing to have a great library, but I just think it's not a great thing for this park. You know, around now there's a demand for open space and recreational activities that is increasing tremendously, and you really have to shepherd that resource. For example, you know, you'll recall that you all were asked to approve an expanded Major League style ballpark. Somebody's donating $500,000 to build, you know, I mean, the plans include a Victorian style backstop and a snack bar and, you know, year-round baseball. I have a little leaguer. I mean, I know how rabid people can get about going to these things. There are no studies yet on the potential traffic impacts and the usage impacts of this. I know Planning Commission was directed by council to start studying this, to come up with a plan and give it back to council, but it's an unknown. The impact of that, the cumulative impact of that use with a potential library use in the park, I think you really have to look at it, you know, before you make a decision to say, yeah, let's move ahead with this. It's just too soon. And, you know, and I think especially in light of, you know, in the presentation, I think it would be great to have a library that's a community center, create a hub. But again, that all implies bringing people in. They talk about the traffic impacts under CEQA. You have to understand the California Environmental Quality Act sets a minimum standard. It is not this community standard for what traffic is acceptable. So the fact that it clears that threshold is not necessarily indicative of how, you know, it will affect our daily lives coming up and down Watkins and turning on Middlefield and all that. I think that I would like to see the current site evaluated with more thought. I went to the September 8th presentation. I asked the question, why can't you go up? And one of the major responses I got was, it's too difficult to hire, you'd have to hire staff to supervise on the second story. Now, I'm sure that's not the only reason. There are millions of dollars sitting in this pot. I would love to see that explored more, because long and linear, it doesn't sound so good to me either. So let's explore a little bit more about the options for going up. Let me just think. I think that there needs to be a plan for the park. You know, you're looking at the ballpark use, you're looking at this as a potential use, and I know over the last several years there have been a number of different ideas for this. You know, it's a beautiful place. Who wouldn't want to have some special thing here? And I do want to echo Lauren and I do appreciate all the work that's gone into it. I'm on a town committee. I know it can be thankless. I was at Rail Committee last night until who knows how long, and I'd really rather go home. But, you know, I just wanted to come and say something. And I should tell you, too, that I was one of the key informants for the needs assessment. There weren't very many. And I'm really not seeing what I said here. Now, it may be that some of the other informants said other things, but I just think we need to pause for a moment. Let's not okay it for now. Not okaying it for now doesn't mean that maybe it couldn't happen later on. But I think that there are a lot of unanswered questions, and it's premature. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Rachel.
I'm Rachel Croft. I'm a 45-year resident of the town. I served for 8 years on Park and Rec Commission. And I'd like all of you to know that 2 different groups wanted to put buildings in the park. And we turned them both down. One of them was a bonsai area, and we envisioned buses coming from all over the community ground into the park. And we sure didn't want buses coming into the park. So we turned that one down. and it did go somewhere. I went over to Oakland or someplace where there is a bonsai area. The second one was the Anderson Art Collection. They wanted to put a building in this one. We felt we didn't want to have another building in the park. And so we turned that one down as well. And that collection has been put up on Sand Hill Road. People can go and see it there. The other thing I have to say is that the Joint Powers Authority is for community, for county libraries. And to me, this park was given by a family to the town as a private park for Atherton residents. And I know that Louise, I think at your earlier meeting, talked about expanding the library people who would use the Atherton Library. And it's something like 81,000 people, something like that, I don't know. Over in the Willis area and areas that previously had used the Menlo Park Library are supposed to be using the Atherton Library. So thinking about traffic impact and more numbers using the library makes it even more of a question whether you want more traffic in this park. Personally, I don't. So I guess I don't have as much to say, but I do thank Denise and Joan and all the people of the committee who worked on this, but I do think we need to look at other alternatives and maybe have some sort of a vote of the town to see if they really approve it. And if the town approved it, then so be it.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks. Sandy?
Sandy Crittenden. I'm on the library task force. I didn't think I was going to speak tonight, but with all my good friends here, I thought I would. I've been involved with the park. Well, as we know, I was born in Atherton, and I was involved with the park in the inception in the 1960s when I used to plow the North Meadow with Cliff Freegang, who was the caretaker here. My first marriage was right outside the door underneath the oak tree that's no longer standing, and I got dressed in my tuxedo in that room right there. I lived 24 years, three houses away from the park. I've raised my kids, I've brought my pets here, I've flown airplanes, kites. I've been here a lot, and I've been involved in the foundation for more years than I can imagine. I've been the president, the treasurer. What else have I done? And I'm a regular user of the park 5 days a week at 8:30 in the morning. Come on down, you can walk with me, even on the rainy days I'm here. I love this park. I think this park is a wonderful asset that the town has. But I believe that the library in the park is a beautiful match. You've got it in, let me qualify this. I believe that the library is a low impact use. When I come in at 8:30, it's a freeway here. It's a freeway here because there's this high rush traffic of everybody wanting to come in to drop their children off, or Little League. Everybody comes, it's a big bang. Library, you go to the library now, it almost looks empty, It's because it's a low filtering thing. This is not this high impact and big bang type presence. I like this idea because, number one, it replaces an existing building, unlike the Bonsai and the Anderson thing. This replaces an existing building, so we're taking a building out and putting a building back in. I don't like the idea that the building is going to be as big as it is, planned as big as it is. I think maybe 2 stories is something that we might want to look at. But even with the hardscape in counting the concrete in this house, the library, if it was as big as it was and one level, would not be any bigger than that. There would be no tree impact, and we would have a nice library, a good place for all of us to go enjoy. Where we're not falling on each other. I'm in the bridge group, so we sit at the children's tables and we interrupt with the people on the computer when we have our bridge classes. So I think it's just a perfect match. I know there's a lot of contingency that says we've got to put it, with a town center. I don't think it makes the town center any better, and I don't think it makes the library any better. But it does make the park better, and it does make the library better for it to be here. Referendum. Everybody talks referendum. Let's just talk history now. The council has never had a referendum for the, excuse me, I've got a leg that shakes. I'm going to sit down and finish my talk if that's all right. Referendum. The council has put a new house, the town manager's house in the park, no referendum. They put the tennis courts in, no referendum, correct?
I'm not sure.
They put the pavilion in, no referendum. They put the fitness path in, no referendum. They put the Little League in, no referendum. Suddenly, we need to have a referendum because this is the same thing that's happening. We're not changing anything if there was no referendum. As far as design and size and reference to the Spanish style, this question that's brought up today is about where the library is to be located, not how big it is, not what colors to be painted, not what design it's supposed to be. That is an entirely separate issue. No matter where it ends up, it's going to be discussed at a separate time. Bias report, yes, it is a bias report. The report was put together by the library task force that studied it and came up with a conclusion. The report offers the conclusion and supporting reasons as to why the conclusion was there. So that's obvious, and I think that needs to be acknowledged.
May I respond to his comments when he's finished with his?
Sure. Little League, if we put a big diamond over there, you're still only going to put 9 players on the field. I don't know, this big influx of all these traffic that's going to come in, it's just going to be a nicer backstop. It's not in a nicer scoreboard. It's not going to be that we're going to put 18 players on the field at a time. So I don't know that we're going to see that much. And the no new buildings is what I was trying to respond to, is that we are not adding, this proposal is not adding a new building, which is, I think, very respectful of the open space in the park. Finally, Frank Merrill, Rachel, and you live in, I think, the old Merrill house, don't you? Frank Merrill knew the old Palmer's, Silas Palmer, is that her name? Olive Palmer, I'm sorry, who gave it. He said she loved the idea of a library in the park, and he knew it. Well, that's up to him. I mean, I don't know, but he said Silas Palmer thought a library would be a good use of her gift to the town. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. I think there are 5 people, although nobody ever talked about a referendum about the ballpark and things, there are 5 people in the room who seem to think a referendum is a good idea. And I have a feeling if you polled the township, I think you would find a large number, a preponderance of people who don't want this slipped by with a report, which although style is supposed to be chosen after in phase 2, we have a proposed site which whacks out 3 heritage trees and which is long and large and hasn't explored any other possibilities. So, you know, it's a little absurd because we've got this report that's based on a comparison of the 2 sites based on a design, and then we're supposed to decide the design later. So there's something fishy about this. I think the lady that said we should pause on this is absolutely 100% correct. In terms of notice, there's a large number of people in Atherton who are older. Not all of them get email. Not all of them, you know, check their email every day. They rely on papers. I don't know how many people were in the task force. I had some questions as to how many people were in the task force, were they the same people who chose the ALBSC, how many focus groups, why were the focus groups happening in the spring and the summer and not November when everybody knows what their kids' school schedule is and they have time to sit down and sort of discuss things. Why is this decision being asked to be made before the new town center plan is going to be an exhibit next week, as Mr. Jones said?
Ask you to, thank you. I just,
Yeah.
we're out of time.
Yeah.
Joan.
I'm Joan Sanders. I've lived in Atherton for 40 years. I've been very involved with the library and also on the library building committee. I think the library in the park is a way of giving the park back to the residents of Atherton. I don't see much discussion of when we have 800 people from Google coming here, is there a parking problem? Is there a use problem? I don't hear anything about renting out the park for weddings. Is there a problem with parking then? No, there's no problem parking for weddings. There's no parking problem for corporate events. And basically, all these people are not Atherton residents. We've been renting out the park now for probably 20 years. And this is not for the people of Atherton. We actually subsidize those rentals. Those rentals do not cover the cost of maintenance in the park. Having the library here would give the park back to the residents. I can imagine Sandy walking his dog around on the path, tying her up, coming into the library. I can imagine a mother who has a child at a Little League practice, who doesn't necessarily want to sit at the practice, who could come over and enjoy a few hours at the library and then pick her child up. Or tell her child, I'll pick you up at the library after practice, and not worry about a child waiting alone in a park. I think the activities are so complimentary. I can't believe that anybody would not want to replace a building that really has no use and no style with a building that would have a lot of use and a lot of style for Atherton residents. And I just think that it's time for the park people to give the park back to Atherton residents, to stop all the rentals, which would stop a lot more traffic than the library would ever generate.
Thank you, John.
Can I remind everybody that it's a public park?
Yeah, you just need to remind, though it is in Atherton, it is a public park. So it will always be a public park. We cannot close it. We've had many requests and letters from residents in town since I've been on almost 10 years on this commission, asking us to close the park to other people, and only, it is a public park. I just make that comment. I'm gonna have to close the floor for now, so we do have another presentation. I apologize, so we'll open it again after a big break. I am going to bring it back at this time, seeing no other comments from anyone else, and ask any commissioners if they have any before our next presentation.
Well, I think it's unfair that they're bringing up the Little League because that's a totally different subject and we have not discussed that, or just maybe we can just sit on that.
Just to, I will only answer one question, Julie. There is no all year round ball playing because of the field use for other, so baseball does not play will not be playing all year round.
Well, I think it depends on like the permanent outfield fence and the tree planting that they want to do. I mean, I think that there are a lot of questions. That's all I'm saying, you know, it may shake out.
That's another subject.
It may shake out, but it's a cumulative use.
Right. I'm just going to take one moment. This was handed to me as I sat down this evening, and it is from an Alan Miller on 84 Walnut Avenue. He addressed Park and Rec Commission. Dear Park and Rec Commission, I cannot attend the meeting, but I want to express my opinion regarding the possible location of the library in Polo Park. I feel that the park is already overutilized. Atherton's population has not appropriately increased over time, but activities in the park have. Please preserve the park value as a haven and avoid increasing the visitors and creating a utilitarian mall of activities. In my opinion, the library should either be part of the new town complex for the police town hall and town office, or should be built in the same location as the current library. Sincerely, Alan Miller. Thank you. I think at this time thank you for all your comments. Just so you are aware, everything is being recorded, so all your concerns and comments will be documented as so, and will be presented to council and available to everyone. So we wanted to make sure everything is documented correctly. At this time, if Jack Lynn is still here, turn to Jack's presentation. Okay. Yeah, I think so we'll just. We may all have to kind of look around here a little bit. Are we supposed to see that? No. We will pick out.
Does anybody want to rearrange things because we're up on this screen and it may not have the same visibility as that screen with some people?
I have extra copies, if you're okay to public chat, you want to?
Yes.
If anybody wants.
Yes, I've got copies of my presentation for the commission, and there are probably some extra copies for the public.
Anybody?
I'm probably going to have to go faster than you and I would like in the interest of time, but so be it. And if I do have to skip over some things, why, they're probably in the handout, and you can look at them at your leisure.
I'm sorry. I got it.
Okay, let me back up a little. That's the wrong button. I don't know how to go in reverse on this thing. Can anybody help me? It says backspace and it keeps going forward.
Use the arrow.
No, that's going forward. That's going backwards. Okay, just to give you my background, I'm a mechanical engineer and an MBA and a minor in finance, so I'm a numbers guy. And I'm going to present a lot of numbers. We've seen pictures and we've heard stories and we've heard sentiment and so forth, but I'm going to stick to the numbers primarily. I've been an Atherton resident for 45 years, member of the Friends Park Foundation, the Rail Committee. I was on the General Plan Committee in the past. Now for some disclaimers. I spent 35 years as a management consultant working on a variety of facilities planning studies, site location studies, and I have never worked on anything that had anything to do with a library. Secondly, I'm going to talk about e-books and so forth. I don't have a Kindle. I don't have an iPad. I don't use them. I don't know how to use them. I expect I will never learn how before I die. So with that, you may not think I'm qualified to speak, and I let you draw your own conclusions as we go on. I'm going to start with a summary. That's what I learned in speech class. You tell them what you're going to tell them, you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them. So, in a nutshell, if you see this and you want to leave, why, that's my message. There's a tremendous book impact on libraries in the future that could reduce print book space please. The Atherton library plans show little e-books studied. I spent quite a bit of time going through the needs analysis, looking for the term e-books. And there are 106 pages in that study, and I didn't see the term e-books once. If I missed it, I wish somebody would show me where it is. The library service area population on which library size is based is overstated, which could cause overbuilding and a tax waste. Decisions on library space and location should wait for more study. First determine size and then location. Going backward. Let's start with a little history. Book technology milestones. 1446 BC. I remember it well. We had the 10 Commandments on stone tablets. God couldn't issue books because paper hadn't been invented. So poor Moses had to carry these stone tablets down the mountain. I wonder if he got a hernia. 100 BC, paper was invented in China. 1440, we had the printing press. Before Gutenberg, books cost more than houses. That may not refer to Atherton houses, but at the time, they cost more than houses. 1971, the first e-book was typed into a computer. And here's Gutenberg's meeting with a monk. A little bit about e-book technology growth. Amazon's first Kindle reader was released in 2007. 12.8 million e-book readers were sold by 2010. 48% of them were Kindle. The first iPad by Apple was released in April 2010. 29 million iPad sales by September 2011. In April 2011, Amazon said Kindles would access ebooks from 11,000 public libraries by year end. In May 2011, Amazon ebook sales overtake their printed book sales. Just a couple of days ago, we saw the Kindle Fire announced. It might put heat on the iPad. It's going to have a lot more features than the original Kindle. Cost $199 versus an iPad ranging from $499 to $899. The Kindle will now handle color and have a lot of other bells and whistles. However, it won't do a lot of the things that an iPad will, but it is a good reader. Let's look at some technology casualties. Buggy whips, Kodak film and cameras. We just had some film developed a few days ago that has been in the camera for 5 or so years. And then we wanted to get some replacement film, and it doesn't exist anymore. You can't get it. Tower Records, remember them? Blockbuster Video. Pay telephones, Borders books. What about printed books? What's their future? Here's Borders books. E-books advantages, they're available 24/7. No library space is needed, no library visits needed. Half the cost of printed books. They're readable on many devices, including iPads, iPhones, iPods, Kindles, Blackberries, and a slew of other things. And I was interested in a visit to the library, our library, a couple of weeks ago to research this. And I asked him about e-books and so forth. And one of the librarians showed me his iPad, and he could read, or his iPod, no, iPhone. And he could read e-books on his iPhone. That's our librarian. Environmental benefits, it saves the trees cut for books, and there are fewer car trips to the library. And here's Brother Alphonse. It would be great to get all this knowledge on a handheld, illuminated, inexpensive device instead of this damn parchment. Life would be much easier for Sister Marion, the librarian. E-books in schools. 2009, Schwarzenegger says, cut the deficit by switching from textbooks to e-books. E-books are the wave of the future. They're starting in private schools. St. Andrew's School in Savannah, Georgia. Now, why do I bring that up? I've got 3 grandchildren there. And their school last year gave iPads to all students through K to 12. And they eliminated their computer lab. It ends up as part of the tuition, so they really didn't give them. Sacred Heart gives freshmen iPads starting this year. Next year they'll give it to freshmen, and so on. In 4 years, all the students will have iPads. Again, it's part of their tuition. Nativity School has 35 iPads that they bought from the results of their Christmas tree sales. and they're shared by students while at schools. They don't have enough so they can allow them to take them home. But all the students are learning how to use iPads. They don't use them much for reading and textbook work, but they do use them for personal reading at school. Castellea is considering iPads. Public schools just can't afford them. And here's my little friends. Now, most of what you've heard this morning grows out of the Atherton Library Needs Assessment, which has been referred to but not much talked about. And in the course of trying to find what is said about e-books, I got pretty familiar with it. It was commissioned by the San Mateo County Library, and in September 2009, they selected a consultant architect who did a study and published a needs assessment report in February 2010. There was no mention of e-books. The October-November 2009 period was the time the survey was made. There were 148 respondents, a 7/10% of the sample of service area population. 47% of respondents were residents of Atherton, a 1% sample of the Atherton population. They recommended 11,100 square foot new library, 2.3 times the existing. The Atherton Library Steering Committee was formed in June 2010. They had no involvement in the needs assessment, and I think had to work with what they were given, so that's what they've been. Correct me in public comment. The Steering Committee mission by the council: oversee the planning and design process of